Welcome back. Well, today we have the elders books in front of us. Finally, we got all these elders books. Now, when you were a Jehovah's Witness, or if you're still a Jehovah's Witness, isn't it the elders book you want to see what's in there? The secret elders book that no one can look at? Not even the wives can look at this elders book. So you see them always reading from it, and then they close it, their personal copy. It's confidential, it's secret. Well, today we're going to open up the secrecy, and we're going to look into the secret elders books. So here we are. We're going to get right into it. We have a little bit of work to do here, and we're going to go right into these elders books. So here's the first one. This is the old elders book. Perhaps a lot of you online remember this one. This is the old one that I was judged by. I was disfellowshipped by this elders book. I was reinstated by this elders book, and I lost all of my privileges at the very end because of this particular elders book. It was the one they were using right up until 2012. And this elders book got the Jehovah's Witnesses into a lot of trouble in Australia, and it got all opened up in the Australia Commission, and then they started to change their elders book. But let's look at why they had to change the elders book. So let's take a look. Let's just, here's what you get when you look at the elders book. Pay attention to yourself, to all the flock. They quote a scripture. This is just how it is. It's all confidential. And they tell them there when they leave in this little box, they got to give it back, and they got to delete all their copies of it if they leave. And then they get another one wherever they go. Because they have to, when you leave a congregation, you lose your appointment. And then they send a letter to the congregation you're moving to. And if the letter is favorable, well, within a few months or whatever, you'll get your privileges back. And if you're an elder, you'll get reappointed as an elder, and you'll get a new copy of the elders book. So the elders book, they hold providence over them, the watchtower. So we're going to get a little closer here. It talks about the purpose of the book. And we're going to go over this really quick because I'm going to go all the way down to page 80. And we're going to look at the CSA stuff on all three elders book and see how they got themselves into so much trouble. Now I'm going to go all the way down to page 80 here. And I went to the index. And in this particular elders book, that's how it works. Because there's nothing in the index. There's no index on this one. And so you got to go to the back of the book. So I went all the way to the back here. And then I looked at CSA. How are they gonna deal with it? So here it is, children's custody, sex abuse right here. Page 93 and 126 with children. That's really all they have. I thought they had a little bit more. I was going through it and I thumbed a few places. So here's what I have. I went to page 80. That's where they deal with it. And go all the way up. I'm going to plug it in here. Okay, so page 80. So we go back a little bit. Page 80. And here's what they have. Not much in here regarding, right here. Articles in the Watchtower, other publications. When special needs arise, a body of elders can review articles that are appropriate, such as those dealing with mercy, reproof, government restrictions, child abuse. See, it mentions it there. Wife beating, mental illness, alcohol or drug abuse, apostasy, working together in field service. So that's the first place it brings it up. And then we go down to 93. And it mentions it again here. Loose conduct, porneia. So here they talk about it just a little bit. Sex right here. Also included are sexual abuse of children, including practices involving a boy kept for purposes. So victims of sexual abuse need to be treated with extreme thoughtfulness, kindness. Elders should always do what they reasonably can to protect child from the further abuse, follow the Society's directives on such matter in the Awake. This Awake of 1985. So I looked up that Awake, and where is it? It's right here. I looked up that Awake. Yeah. So the Awake is right here, and I'll put it on the big screen. So all this Awake was on is, it wasn't even on abuse, it was on family communication. How can it be improved? And then I go all the way down in the article, and it talks about communicating with children. It's an Awake. It's not even a watchtower. This is it's not an instructional document to deal with CSA. So it just says, at arrival of a couple's first child's present, the real challenge them. After all, blah, blah, blah. They just talk about communicating with your children. That's all they talk about here in this related article. So we're going to go back to the documents that we're looking at. So that's all they have there. That's all they have as a cross-reference. So I'm going to go all the way to page 126 here. And page 126, it doesn't talk about much here to do. It talks about the appeal committee. They should ascertain whether there was scriptural basis for the original action taken. They say there may be mitigating circumstances. The wrongdoer may admit guilt. The appeal committee will examine the evidence. They may find the original basis was invalid. Yeah, page 126. Not really a lot there for child CSA. Here's the point. I'm going to put it on my big screen. So the point that they have here is there may be mitigating circumstances. The committee, you see that? I'll get that up on the screen there. Yeah. There may be mitigating circumstances the committee overlooks, such as a history of some type of abuse when a child. So that's the other abuse I found in this book. Not much. Now we're going to go to page 106 and look at what it says here. Okay, so this is the point here at Matthew 18:5-17. Jesus gave counsel on handling serious wrongs. So Jesus counseled, he said, such fraud and slander sins are serious enough to lead a person being expelled. So the second step involves taking one or two persons with him to speak with the individual, and these should preferably be witness of the alleged wrongdoing, or respected brothers, usually elders, who can examine the evidence and offer counsel. So they also become witnesses to the evidence presented in the discussion. And the person who believes he has been wrong takes the third step, bringing the matter to the congregation as a last resort. So could you imagine a young child doing all of this? It's not going to happen. But that's the principle that they were using. Okay, so this is just down a little further. What kind of evidence is acceptable? It says there must be 2 or 3 eyewitnesses, not just persons repeating what they have heard. No action can be taken if there's only one witness. Confession, admission of wrongdoing, either written or oral, may be accepted as conclusive proof. So you see, that's not going to happen with a small child in this particular circumstance. This part talks about an appeal. If an appeal is not made within 7 days, announce the disfellowshipping. So even if there is an accusation, there's an appeal board. Let's carry on. And this is just in page 139. Certain disputes between brothers should not be taken to secular courts, but should be resolved in harmony with Jesus' counsel at Matthew. So even for civil matters, disputes between brothers, one brother cheats another brother out of something, they don't want civil courts. They want these disputes all brought before the body of elders. So the elders become lawyers, judges, and most of these elders are just window cleaners and janitors. They don't believe in higher education. but you pretty much have to be a lawyer to litigate this darn elders book. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is what this one looks like. That's what a shepherd the flock, 1 Peter. And I got some pictures in it, a little bit more updated. There's some updated letters. They have a little name, you issue it to the person. So a little bit more up to date. There's I'll put the different screen on. Oh, it'll be better with this screen. So this particular one has a it has an index in it, so you can go through the index and you should be able to find what you're looking for, although I didn't find CSA in here in the index. So I went to the back, and that's where I found it. Okay, so we're in the index here, and you just go down under the C, CSA right here, and we'll go to that section right now. Okay, so here it is. It's buried in chapter 12, and right here. So it says you should immediately call the branch. So this is altogether different. This is the 2017 book. And you notice it says, see the August 1st, 2016 letter to all bodies of elders. So I pulled that up as well. Let's look at that first. Okay, so here's the insert, August 1st, 2016, and it's quite the insert. So imagine the Australian Commission went forth, exposed the Watchtower, something terrible, and the Watchtower is getting sued because of the 1991 Elders book. It had nothing in there to deal with CSA, but you have to have two witnesses, so that it all got kind of thrown under the cover, hidden. In August 1st, 2016, they started to address it. Look at all the work they put into it. You know, moving to congregations, the table of contents, dear brothers. This replaces all the other stuff, and they just talk about from the Bible standpoint, child sex abuse is a gross sin. They leave it on the parents. The scriptures place the responsibility on the parents for protecting their children. As spiritual shepherds, elders can help parents to shoulder the responsibility. So what's happening here is elders are abusing children, and this is getting exposed. So this goes out the door, all this stuff. Legal considerations talks about in some jurisdictions, this is what they were saying back then, individuals who learn of an allegation may be obligated by law to report it to the secular authorities. In all cases, the victim and her parents have absolute right to report it to the authorities. And it says in number 6, to ensure the elders comply with child abuse reporting laws, 2 elders should immediately call the legal department for legal advice when the elders learn of an accusation of child abuse. So again, it comes back to going to the headquarters. They're supposed to call the headquarters. A call should be made even when both persons involved are minors, and the elders should not ask an alleged victim, the accused person, or anyone else to call the legal department on the elder's behalf. The elders should call the legal department, even in the following situations. So it says, even if the abuse occurred many years ago, if the abuse is based on a testimony of only one witness, they should call. If the alleged abuse is believed to be a repressed memory, if the alleged abuse involved perpetrators or victims who are deceased, if the alleged abuse is believed to have already been reported to secular authorities, so they're still calling. If the alleged perpetrator or victim is not a member of your congregation, you still call. The alleged perpetrator is a non-witness associating with the congregation. The alleged abuse occurs before the alleged perpetrator or victim was baptized. The alleged victim is now an adult. The alleged abuse occurs in the past, and it's unclear whether your congregation elders ever called the legal department for direction. You see, in the past, it didn't say to call the legal department. Just, the elders would look for 2 witnesses and slide everything under the carpet. Now, the legal department, it says here, will provide legal advice based on the facts, the applicable law. 2 elders should immediately call the legal department. It goes on just to talk about all of that. And providing spiritual assistance to the victim. Protecting minors from abuse, August 1st, page 3, shepherding so here's a bunch of inserts. Investigating allegations, judicial committee. If they conclude there's sufficient scriptural evidence to warrant formation of a judicial committee for sex abuse, they should first contact the circuit overseer. So they can't even make that decision. So the circuit overseer will designate an experienced elder to serve as a chairman. And if needed, the appeal committee. And if the wrongdoing is established and the wrongdoer is not repentant, he should be disfellowshipped. On the other hand, if the wrongdoer is repentant and is reproved, the reproof should be announced to the congregation. Interesting. This announcement will serve as a protection for the congregation. So this was all put into play after the Australian Commission. Reinstatement committees, if a person who has been disfellowshipped for child sex abuse applies for reinstatement, the coordinator of the body elders should contact his circuit overseer and provide the names of those who served on the original committee. The circuit overseer will designate an experienced elder to serve. So, but there's nothing with mandate reporting to the police, not that I've seen. It all boils down to calling the legal department. And, they just talk about filing it, moving to another congregation. Notification by secular authorities. From time to time, secular authorities may inform elders that a sex offender is living in the area. And the notice may provide the address of the individual and may state the nature of his criminal activity. In such a case, the elders should list that address on the appropriate congregation territory cards as a do not call. So you notice that, folks? Let's say the police come and say, hey, there's a sex offender by your kingdom hall or something, or in your territory that you call on. And so they're noting it on the do not call card. They're making it public for all their publishers to know that don't call on this one. It's a sex offender. Now, for the repentant elder, let's say, that's a sex offender in the congregation, they're not doing that. They're keeping it very quiet. They put it in a blue envelope, and it's all hush-hush. I think we'll find that in some of the other letters here. So that's the end of the addendum. We go back to the book on child abuse. This is the Elders book, so we read this addendum. It was quite long. The book actually doesn't say a whole lot. Call the branch office. Never suggest to anyone that they should not report an allegation of child abuse to the police. So they learned their lesson. Here in point 19, never suggest not to go to the police. But they're making it, the parents have to go to the police. So the decision for each individual to make, and that there are no congregation sanctions for either decision. So if you're asked to make it clear whether to report the matter to the authorities or not, it is a personal decision for each individual to make, and that there are no congregation sanctions for either decision. Elders will not criticize anyone who reports such an allegation to the authorities. If the victim wishes to make a report, it is his or her absolute right to do so. And then they cross out 20 when a known molester, because they have that addendum, right? So they crossed all this stuff out. And then they get into taking brothers to court. So that's kind of the end of that. Now we're going to move forward to the 2023 edition of the Elders book, and let's see what it says. Okay, so we're now at the latest Elders book, Shepherd the Flock of God. This is the most recent October edition of 2023, just downloaded, fresh off the print. And we're going to look at the addendum that we read just a few days ago with this. But here it is. This is the brand new Elders book. This, they hope, will keep them out of court. Shepherd the Flock, October 23. And this publication is not for sale. It's provided as part of a worldwide Bible educational work and is supported by voluntary donations. I thought that was pretty out there right at the beginning. You're a new elder, you get this book, you open it up. Even before you get to the copyright page, they, in bold letters here, they're asking for money. because you're an elder and you got this book and you're thinking, "Oh, this is a nice book." So you're probably going to throw $50 into the contribution box for this elder's book. This is just a moneymaker for them. Anyways, that's my beef. Now, they have a nice table of contents, how elders work as a body, congregation service. So they kind of explain the whole thing. Circuit overseers, medical matters. Now, you as the audience, I have these elders books. If you have any questions, put it in the comments below and we'll do a movie. We'll cover a section or a couple sections that you're interested in. So, today we're just kind of looking at the CSA stuff. And we're seeing how they've dealt with that. Now, I don't see it. Again, I do not see this CSA stuff right in the table of contents. Oh, yeah, here it is. They now put it in the table of contents. Right here, section 14, chapter 14. So we're going to go there and see what it says. Okay, so here we are, chapter 14, child abuse. Now, what I noticed in the latest elders book, and of course, with any business, and remember, folks, this is a business. When they say the word Jehovah, they mean Watchtower. So Watchtower, Jehovah, JW.org, Jehovah, they use those terms, and that's what they mean. So if you're reading from the Watchtower, you are reading from Jehovah's mouth. And that's kind of how they do it. So Jehovah has revised the Elders book over the years. It's better. It's more up to date. Now, did Jehovah really revise it? Is it new light? No. This is done by the Australian Commission. They arm wrestled them, pulled these guys to court, and exposed it all. There's like over 1,000 cases of CSA with that old Elders book, the way it was designed. And that's why in 2017, they had this addendum from 2016, and they patched up and built a new Elders book. It's costing them millions upon millions of dollars in payouts, and it's still not done. This is still not done. So the new Elders book, this is the latest one. They have made its own chapter for CSA, its own 30-page instructional book. Now, what confuses me is if you're an elder and you don't have higher education, maybe you just have high school. Now, granted, Jehovah's Witnesses do a lot of reading, and it's like we were taught to litigate by reading through Watchtowers and studying and finding that we have the truth and finding every scripture to support it. It's like litigating the Bible. It's like being a lawyer and litigating everything throughout the Watchtower indexes. Now, that's not far out, because Judge Rutherford invented this religion, and he's not even a judge. He was a lawyer, and through the course he sat in the judge's seat 3 occasions. That's it. And he wanted to be called judge. And it was part of the training to be a lawyer. All the lawyers that were training had to sit in the judge's seat for 3 times before they'd pass their bar exam. And so Judge Rutherford got out, and that was his final, and he wanted to be called judge. And so they called him Judge Rutherford. But he was a litigator, and he built the religion on litigation. It's just bound volumes of bound volumes. And he started this whole game back in 1919 when he got out of prison. He went crazy, wrote the Rainbow of Books, which they don't use today. But he taught the governing body of today to be like that, to be litigators. And so we see everything is done like a lawyer's handbook. So chapter 14, child abuse. These poor elders have to read through all of this. Some of them are just janitors and window washers, very limited education. And they got to look at this stuff and study it. It's pretty complicated. So there's legal considerations, prison inmates, child pornography, and sexting. That's a new thing, sexting. Congregation considerations, providing spiritual assistance to the victims, investigating allegations, judicial committees, reinstatement committees, restrictions, filing, moving to another congregation, notification by secular authorities, and sexual misconduct involving only minors. So there's quite a bit of information here when we go down here. And again, it covers the similar stuff that we've seen in that addendum that they gave to the 2017 book. It was as a result of the 2016 addendum, as a result of the what happened in Australia. So they came out with this addendum. It's all pretty well the same. except now it's in the up-to-date Elders book with a few more addendums. So the alleged abuse occurred many years ago, so they have to deal with it all if anything comes forth. Now, the legal department will provide legal advice based on facts in the applicable law. If the individual who is accused of child abuse is associated with your congregation, the two elders calling should provide the legal department with the individual's full name, date of birth, and if applicable, date of baptism. After speaking with the legal department, the call will be transferred to the service department. If there is potential for media interest in the situation, the call will then be transferred to the public information department. Interesting. So they got all their bases covered. They're all ready for this stuff. Prison inmates. Two elders should immediately call department regarding any prison inmate, baptized, unbaptized, who has been accused of child abuse and who is now associating with the congregation. This would include his attending congregation meetings held in the prison. In some cases, elders may not be permitted to inquire about the offense that the inmate may have committed. However, if the elders learn that the alleged offense has to do with child abuse, they should immediately call the legal department. And child pornography and sexting, that's texting, with sex on the text. If the elders become aware of an adult associated with a congregation who has been involved with child pornography, two elders should immediately call the legal department. Likewise, if elders become aware of an adult or minor associated with a congregation who is sexting with a minor, the legal department should be called immediately. The legal department does not need to be informed when the elders receive reports of adults sexting one another. Interesting. Congregation considerations. So, the legal department's not interested in sexting, reports of adults sexting, just children sexting. If an adult is sexting a minor, then that has to go to the legal department. But two adults can sext. Now, congregation considerations. When discussing child sex abuse from a congregation standpoint, we are not considering a situation in which a minor who is a willing participant and who is approaching adulthood and is involved in sexual activity with an adult who is a few years older than a minor. Nor, generally speaking, are we discussing situations in which only minors are involved. Rather, we are referring to an adult guilty of sexually abusing a minor who is a young child, or an adult guilty of sexual involvement with a minor who's approaching adulthood, but was not a willing participant. So that's disputable. I think they could get themselves into trouble. I think they, even if it appears that the minor was wanting to get involved in this, the authorities will look at this altogether different. Minors they don't have that ability. So I think this is an issue when I look at this. Providing spiritual assistance to victims, elders should demonstrate empathy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay, when shepherding a child abuse victim was still a minor, two elders and a minor's parent should be involved. So that's good, the parents involved. Of course, if one of the parents is accused, then the accused parent would not be involved. If neither parent can be present, then another adult publisher, a male, they'll get a male, not a man, not a woman, in the congregation who is confident the victim should be included. So I think they have an issue here. I think this should all go to professional help. None of these elders are qualified. This is bogus, number 14. Dealing with children, elders dealing like this is all nonsense. Number 15, as spiritual shepherds, elders should be good listeners. Some victims may prefer not to talk about it. They just go on to talk. The time the elders can spend shepherding in the congregation as a victim is limited, so they must balance it. And that, again, there's nowhere in here that they're telling these victims to get therapy and to go out and get help. They're trying to do it all, and now they're saying that we don't have enough time. You guys don't have enough time for this. It's limited, so you must balance it. These victims, they're years and years of emotional support. There's a lot of work to rehabilitating a victim. So I think they screwed up here. 16, they're out to lunch. There has to be more. in this elders book to help the victims. Number 17, in addition to spiritual shepherd, providing by the elders, the victim or her family may desire other assistance. For example, an adult sister who suffered from abuse as a child may choose to approach an empathetic sister for emotional support and encouragement. Or if the adult sister is agreeable, an elder or two may discreetly ask a mature sister if she is in a position to help a suffering sister in that way. Whether a victim or her family seeks qualified professional help is a personal decision. So they don't offer professional help. They don't recommend it. They just say whether they do it. It's personal. And no one knows this. You see, the rank and file out there, they don't know this. They don't know that they should go and get professional help. Here in the congregation, they're trying to get another sister involved or another elder to sit down with the victims. Like, that's nonsense. These people are not qualified. There's no one in the congregation qualified. I've been in the congregation for 30 years, pioneering. I am not qualified. No one's qualified in the congregation unless they have special training. Special outside training, which means higher education. You see, this religion's a cult. It hides everything within. And yeah, if you want to go get therapy, you can. But they don't recommend it. If an elder is asked for advice on this matter, he may direct attention to the appropriate Bible principles. That's it. That's all they're going to do. Investigating allegations. Yeah, what's the Bible going to do to a suffering victim? Like, they might need a lot of help that you and I don't understand how to give it. Investigating allegations. The elders may learn of an allegation of sexual abuse directly from the victim, through her parents or through the trusted confidant of the victim. After receiving assistance from the branch, you see, they don't call the police. They call the branch. And if the accused is a publisher, then the body of elders will appoint 2 elders to investigate. What if they're not? What if they're just attending and they're just mixed company? You know, there's got to be more to it. These elders should carefully follow the scriptural procedure and the Bible-based direction in this chapter 12. During the investigation process, during the judicial committee process, a victim of CSA is never required to make her allegation in the presence of the alleged abuser. So that's good. That's something new. That's a new piece that wasn't in the old book. However, the victims who are now adults may do so if they wish. In addition, victims can be accompanied by a confidant of either gender when presenting their accusation to the elders. So these confidants, and I haven't looked this up, but I know when I dealt with a civil matter, I had witnesses that were not Jehovah's Witnesses, and they wouldn't allow any of them in. So all your witnesses that testify, I believe, have to be JWs. I'll do some more research on that. If a victim prefers, the accusation can be submitted in the form of written statement. Generally, in the case of a victim who is a minor, elders should be able to obtain necessary information from parents. In addition, sufficient evidence needed to establish the wrongdoing on the part of the alleged abuser may already be available to the elders. In the exceptional event that 2 elders believe it is necessary to speak with a minor who is a victim of child sex abuse, the elders should first contact the service department. Good point. So they're not even allowing these elders to get in front unless they get legal advice. So it's hard to say what kind of legal advice they're getting. Judicial committee. If the body of elders conclude that there is sufficient scriptural evidence to warrant the formation of a committee on the grounds of CSA, the coordinator should first contact the circuit overseer. So it's the same as we read from their 2017 addendum. They're getting higher ups involved in CSA because I think they realize that the rank and file elders are not qualified to deal with this stuff. So they just go talk about making announcements. The announcement will serve as a protection for the congregation. Victims of CSA are not handled judicially. If a body of elders believes that the congregation actions may be warranted in the case of a minor who is willing to participate in the wrongdoing, 2 elders should be called a service department before proceeding. And then it talks about the reinstatement committee. If a person who has been disfellowshipped for CSA applies for reinstatement, the coordinator of the body elders should contact the circuit overseer and provide names. So they're going to make it a little bit more difficult for people to get reinstated. If the person is moved to a different congregation, then they have to contact the circuit overseer. And the circuit overseer of the new congregation will designate an experienced elder to serve as the chairman of the reinstatement committee. And restrictions, they're saying that it is determined that the publisher, baptized or unbaptized, who is guilty of CSA and is repentant and will remain in the congregation, one disfellowship is reinstated. A publisher baptized who denies accusation is convicted by secular authorities, or one viewed as a child molester by the community and becomes a publisher or gets baptized. So there's restrictions. The elder should carefully adhere to all direction provided by the service department. And there's going to be restrictions. So in such cases, direction from the service department to elders will include restrictions imposed on the individual's activities within the congregation and on his participation in field ministry. The elders will also be directed to caution the individual never to be alone with a minor, not to cultivate friendships with minors, not to display affection for minors, and so forth. And the service department will direct the elders to inform family heads of minors within the congregation of the need to monitor their children's interaction with the individual. So that's a good point. So now they're alerting other families to this happening. So the elders would take this step only if directed to do so by the service department. So there is a condition there. It's not automatic. They could decide not to do that. The coordinator, I think that has to be changed. I think it has to be mandatory. Now, the coordinator of bodies of elders should ensure that the newly appointed elders and elders who move into the congregation are made aware of the service department's direction. One who has engaged in a CSA does not qualify to receive any privileges in the congregation for many years, if ever. This includes minor privileges. Paul's counsel to Timothy was special relevance in this case. Never lay your hands hastily on any man, neither become a share in the sins of others. If the body of elders believes that the one who has engaged in CSA decades ago may now qualify for minor privileges, such as working with audio-video support, which includes working with the stage and passing microphones, serving as an attendant, or assisting with accounts, literature, and territories, they should assign 2 elders to call the service department. And the assigned elders should call the service department before any congregation privileges are extended. So that's kind of how it works. They're going to give privileges maybe after many years. Ones can get back into privileges. I don't think they should ever have privileges. I think it's a crime. It's a very serious crime. And when they're running the mics, when you're going up and down the hallways on the mics, you're always looking at people, and you're higher up, you're standing up, and if people have low-cut shirts or anything, you can see. The guys running the mics are watching everything, and I think that's a dangerous place to be if a person has a history of CSA running mics. I think the Watchtower has to change that. So moving to another congregation, and I think it has to be mandatory call the police. None of this bullshit calling the legal department. These elders, this organization has to get out of the fact that they are the police for all the rank and file. They have to get out of that. These people with crimes happening in the congregation has to go to secular authorities, and then the victims can get help. Now, moving to another congregation, they talk about filing, notification, the same thing we talked about. So that's the end of the article. We are going to look at the addendum for that, and the addendum is here, and it was chapter 22, paragraph 19.4. They want added a report made by the elders to document a report that they made to the secular authorities regarding any accusation of child abuse to the list of items that should be placed in the sealed envelope retained in the congregation file. So now, finally, this latest addendum, I believe, is maybe they're trying to satisfy Norway or some of these countries that are coming at them. So here it is, added a report made by the elders to document a report that they made to the secular authorities. It doesn't say it's mandatory. You see, I still think the Watchtower, they're leaving this very vague. A report that may be made, okay, a report they made, so if they made one, regarding an accusation to the list of items. So we'll go take a look at that, chapter 22, and see how that fits in. Okay, so chapter 22, paragraph 19.4, and we'll just go there right now. So chapter 19.4 is talking about a record made by the elders to document a report they made to the secular authorities regarding any accusation of child abuse. And all they want them to do now is to make a list of items, place them in a sealed envelope, and retain it in the congregation file. And that's if they report or to a secular authority. Remember, they're going to check to see if the legal department's going to tell them if they have to in that area. You see, every state and every country on earth has different rules. So their legal department will check the rules, and if they don't have to, they're not going to, because they don't want to have any more exposure than they have to. They don't want the media involved. So that's kind of how they do it, and they try to limit themselves. The problem I see, though, with these elders' books is that they're giving the elders too much responsibility when there's crimes, when a crime is committed, a public crime. And CSA is a crime in every country. So these crimes, you know, if there was a murder, are they going to cover that up? No, they're going to go to the secular authorities, just like what's happened with all these bombings and terrorist attacks on them. The police are involved. They're criminal activity. So the Shepherding the Flock of God is a book, a big book, designed to control the people, to control the rank and file. So the governing body has definite culpability in anything that goes on within this religion because of this book, and because it's so highly regulated and it's secret. So this is getting a lot of attention with the news media. We just did an article with one in Sydney, Australia, and they got a copy of this book, and they went through it, and they found some issues. And let's just take a quick look. Now, the Sydney Morning Herald, we just ran a video here the other day called Punishment and Control, the Secret Handbook That Rules a Religion. They just got a hold of this news media, and they're the biggest news media in Australia. They have a publishing of 8 million people, the same as the Watchtower, this one news media. They got this book, and they have this lawyer, this lady here, former Jehovah's Witness lawyer, Fleur Hawes, and she's going through this book because it is like litigating. And this article, if you can look at my video, they're going from the blood doctrine aspect and how they're coercing children and parents to, they're even showing that. So I'm going to look at that in another video. But as we are today, we covered off on this shepherding the flock from the CSA standpoint. And what we're seeing happening, and we have news articles coming out every day, is that back in the 90s, back in the 80s, there are individuals that have had child sex abuse problems within the congregation. Perhaps they were elders even. And it's coming out now, 25 years later. So it was the old Shepherding the Flock book, the 1991 edition, similar to that they were dealt with. So under that book, let's just go to it just briefly and leave off here. I'll show you what it has to say about CSA. Now, this one had a 30-page detailed manual, and it was still short in a few areas. It should be mandatory reporting to the police no matter what happens, but that's not the way it is. But at least they go to the legal department and they're getting assistance, and there's a lot of care put into the CSA, which before there wasn't. So let's look at before. So here's the old book. This is the book that I was dealt with by, and we'll just go right to the end of it here. And they have no index in this book, no nothing. Or an index, but no glossary or anything, not much. Now, you get into the index here, and what do they have? Children. You see that there in the middle? Children. So they have custody, elders' responsibility, parents' responsibility, provide for parents, and then sexual abuse of page 93 and 126. That's all they had in that old book. And then you'd have to go to the 2-witness rule if there wasn't 2 witnesses. And that's why this book got them in so much trouble. This is all these victims went to the elders with their problems, and then the elders followed this book. And this book is what is putting them into such jeopardy. So that brings a conclusion to shepherding the flock, taking a look at it and going through it together to see how the Watchtower got themselves into so much trouble. The reason we know this is a business and it's not some organization that's run by new light from God, we know it's just a business because it didn't make a change until the government said you had to. They got put on trial in Australia. They got exposed, and then they knew they had a problem with their elders book, their 2-witness rule. So they don't want to change their 2-witness rule. They want to leave that in there, but now they've changed their policy on how to deal with CSA. And that's a good thing. All the religions have to do that. Now, the one thing that we're missing with this religion is an apology. An apology for how they did it before, yesterday, where they didn't report it, they just shoveled it under the carpet. That has to happen yet. Now, according to the latest 2023 annual meeting, Jeffrey Winder said, no need for an apology, it's new light. So let's see what happens as we move forward. The nations are wanting an apology. Japan is wanting an apology. Norway is wanting an apology. Australia is wanting an apology. New Zealand is wanting an apology. Abuse and care. No apologies yet from this organization. Well, folks, next time we're going to look at how the elders, we're going to take a look at some sample elder videos and how they train their elders and how they use this shepherding the flock to disfellowship people. That's going to be our next video. Okay, well, thanks again, and until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now.